Shalom, giving all praise unto Yahweh Shema Shabbat Korash, the bonus unto the apostles of Great Millstone, and our honest you brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Above everybody coming out here to give it this truth for the grace and mercy of Yahweh. Bashim Yahweh Shai, Bashim Korash, giving all praise unto Yahweh Shema Shabbat Korash. Okay, so this is going to be a relatively quick video based upon these articles that we see here, and pretty much you can see from this article here that the indeed, like the scripture says, Babylon, America, which was prophesied to be the top kingdom within the latter times, was going to come down fast. Okay. As a matter of fact, the scripture says, when I was about to when our head reaches onto the cloud, thence will the Most High bring thee down. And I suppose this is a bit of an example of that peak being reached, and certainly a downward spiral towards the bottom of the drain, so you can understand. Okay, so without much further ado, let me get into this video. Okay, so it says 6 million Americans late on mortgage payments, and the reason I phrased it like how I phrased it a second ago is you got to remember what the peak looked like. Okay, and the peak wasn't too long ago. Okay, the peak wasn't too long ago. 1970s, right? About 40 odd years ago, 50 years ago, so like 1970s, when they was able to produce a whole bunch of cars, produce a whole bunch of products, and make a ton of money off of the back of it. Now you're seeing a whole different type of a situation now, where you know the time where they had all that amount of resources is behind them. Okay, as a matter of fact, the dream back in the day with the dollar being strong was you get the woman, you get the kids, you get the white picket fence, and maybe you get the big car, so to speak, and go on a couple of videos a year. Okay, go on a couple of videos a year. And again, like I said, that's a thing of the past. As you can see here, the situation is getting very, very dire. Okay, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. Okay, you see, with these tariffs, they got these long-term goals, but the short-term impact, right, is going to pretty much destroy the economy. And ultimately, that's the plan. Okay, to bring about the order that they want, not the order that's going to benefit you, but the order that's going to benefit the elite banking family, starting first and foremost with the Rothschilds and many other families like that. They're the ones that are going to benefit first and foremost with these changes. And all these people, these losers out here, they're going to be just that. They're going to be losers. Okay, right? The only winners that's going to come out of this situation that you're getting ready to place upon the face of the earth is the elite banking families, man. Right? So 6 million Americans are late on their mortgage payments. What's the mantra of the elites? The mantra of the elites is you shall own nothing, and you're supposed to be happy about that. You're supposed to be happy about the fact that you have nothing, okay, to show for your hard work. Now we can start with first and foremost, we can start with the Israelites. We'll see if the scriptures say how they've made no account of our labors. That is to say, you go and you work and you don't get the reward for your labors, right? 2, let's look at the impact of being late on your mortgage. Well, you need to ask yourself, why do people go to work, right? Why do you go to work? You go to work to make money, to pay bills, and ultimately to have something, right, that you can give to your children, right, to sustain yourself, to protect yourself, to eat, right? That's why you go to work. All right, so you pay your little mortgage, you got your little resources, that the money chain goes around in a circle. What happens when that money chain stops going around in a circle? That is to say, you can't pay your bills anymore, right? You can't pay your mortgage anymore. Well, ultimately, the economy grinds to a halt. Okay. Ultimately, the economy grinds to a halt. The person that was spending their money in the sneaker store is not spending their money in the sneaker shop anymore. And this is all by design, man. Okay, this is all by design. This is all something that they've orchestrated, right, for the longest time to bring the economy back to grinding to a halt. Let's read this a little bit here. Buying a home remains out of reach for millions of Americans because of the inflated house pricing. Again, like with the example I gave you within the 1970s and that, what you had was a situation where, you could buy that house outright, okay, because it was like 4 or 5 times your salary, and you could pay it off within a couple of years. Now you got a ridiculous mortgage schemes, ridiculous house prices, but also too you got the cost of borrowing. You got 30-year loans, which is really unheard of. You better believe the bank's making all kind of money off of the back of you, but it's all by design, man. So you ain't supposed to be winning out here, man. You ain't supposed to be winning, especially out here within the UK, man. You buy a house, buy it out, do it up, right? Your children inherit it, and they inherit it in a way that doesn't meet the books properly. Guess what? You're gonna be done for inheritance tax. That's crazy. Illinois also had a high percentage of those with late payments, right? 13.9% of all households. That's a high percentage, man. But this was the most concentrated amongst renters with 24% delinquencies. So basically, you couldn't pay it. Roughly 14% of Delaware households, renters, owners were behind on housing payments. While Wyoming, I gotta have to pronounce that, around about 12%, right, facing delinquencies. So that's really a reflection of the economy. Okay, that's really a reflection of the situation out there. And you can see it's a dire situation out there, which, it's a beautiful thing. Does not the scripture say, the grinding shall cease, right? So if the grinding cease, that means you ain't making money. That means you ain't gaining money. And if you ain't gaining money and making money, well, therefore you ain't gonna be paying no bills. It's just that simple. Therefore you're gonna be late on these payments, man. And they're gonna come, the repo man's gonna come take your house. However it's gonna work out, man. We're gonna see how it's gonna work out. But we know it's gonna be a beautiful, delightful thing to observe, watch as this kingdom right circles the drain, right? So with that, I'm gonna say, praise and thank you, my the bonus of the apostles of great millstone. On your brothers, every pushing this truth in sincerity. Shalom.